Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shanalytics, episode 36. I titled this. This is Ben and Vinny's vibe, though, whatever you guys want to call this. It's me, Ben Meyerson. I'm here with my guy, Vinny Saglameni. First off, everyone, Victory Monday, a great way to start off the week. We still get to talk about 49ers football. They're not done just yet. They're going to be playing this Sunday at Dallas, 4:30 Eastern. Vinny, first of all, I know this is a chaotic end to the season, but let's kind of start here. What were your initial thoughts right after that LA Rams game? Because that was quite the intense battle.
Yeah, so it sucked for me just because I was on a flight. So I had to watch the game on my Southwest live. Luckily they had it, so I had to watch it on the plane. But then also my brother was using my Sunday Ticket account to watch the game, so I didn't want to kick him off of it. And I was just waiting at the airport, just scrolling on the ESPN app, just waiting for it to refresh. So it was definitely stressful, but I think this game is just the perfect symbol for how the 49ers season went all year. The beginning of it, absolutely terrible. And I think that's the beginning, given the expectations that this team had. The beginning of this game was not looking very promising.
Startlingly bad, right?
It was wow, this is in a way, it's kind of the perfect ending of how the season could have gone, just in the sense that how the rest of not a perfect ending, but the most fitting ending, looking at that first half. And you're just and someone had mentioned it, I think it may have been Jordan, after some of those other there are a lot of people obviously doing post-game spaces and shows and everything. Is I think it was Jordan that mentioned that, you would be lying to yourself if there weren't multiple points in this game where you thought the 49ers season was over. There were and being down 17-0, kind of seeing Sean McVay kind of carve up the defense a little bit, and then seeing some of the mistakes that Jimmy made. But, this team has done throughout this whole season, they've all proved us wrong. And they're resilient, and they came back. And, what an amazing way to, get that playoff spot in. And now they just, all they wanted to do is just give themselves a chance. That's all they asked for. And that's all, Kyle Shanahan, at this point of the season, I think that's all he wanted. Just give us a chance just to get in, and then anything can really happen. And, they find themselves in that position. And it's funny too, because a few weeks ago, we had talked about how, when this team makes the playoffs, no one wants to face this team. And then, after that Tennessee loss, then I kind of mentioned, there are some things that are vulnerable about this team. But now looking at it, I think that's just kind of the perfect way of how the season has gone. It's you don't want to play them, then you find vulnerable spots. And now looking at this first game against Dallas, which we'll get into in a little bit, I don't know many teams that would want to go face this team in the playoffs, especially, hoping that, other guys that come back fully healthy. So, and that's something we'll probably get into a little later, but people are forgetting, they didn't have Trent Williams in this game. Nope. They didn't have K'Wan Williams, their best slot corner, as well. And just a very, awesome win to see. And, it was just a sense of relief, kind of just okay, they're in now. And now, anything can happen.
Yeah, the 49ers, I mean, we've discussed this at length, and I don't know if we've outwardly said it, but they can beat any team and they can lose to any team. They are really, in terms of outcomes, they're the most volatile NFL team that I've watched and covered this kind of way. And this game against the LA Rams, I think you kind of summed it up perfectly, Vinny. It encapsulates the 49ers season, which is you count them out so many times when it looks like nothing is going their way, then everything goes their way and they get lucky and anything that can go their way will go their way, and then everything starts going their way and the snowball just keeps rolling. And I think by the time that game was 17-10, I was pretty confident the 49ers were at least going to send the game to overtime. If not, I thought they should have won that game in regulation, just watching how the game flow went. But really, like, hey, 49ers owned the Rams. Kyle won by running the ball down big in a game. That's a whole thing.
And that's the crazy thing too. It's like, obviously we're giving a lot of credit to, the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, the players, and that's obviously something that you should take note of. But the Rams kind of just like shut down. It almost felt like. And like it's crazy to think that like how big those 3 points the 49ers got before heading into OT. I don't think the Rams expected them to score in that. And then they're like, okay, now they're gonna get the ball. And you saw what they were able to do running the ball as well. And that's credit to Kyle Shanahan for not, because we've seen before in the past where he's kind of like wavered away from it and put the ball in Jimmy's hands. But now you saw there was that second touchdown drive to tie it up, 10 straight runs, and then you go that pass from Debo when everyone thought he was running, and that was just he was in his bag. And the Rams kind of just like, I don't know, they got shut down a little bit and they kind of just like zoned out a little bit, which I think is something that could cause potentially problems for them, not just not this postseason, but the future, because you look at the Rams and you say every year that they're going to be this contender, but then somehow, some way they always fall up short. And it's it's kind of baffling sometimes because that team is very talented, but
they're soft and they can't run the ball. I mean,
and I think that's something that Sean McVay really wants to do, and I think he's not able to really do that. And yes, this is better. I think this team is better than past years with Jared Goff, but you can still kind of see some of the
they're not so much better that it's going to make
and you can still see that, like, obviously the quarterback and having a new quarterback, especially being Matt Stafford, is going to solve a lot of problems that you have, but it's not going to solve all of them. And I think you kind of saw that with the lack of a running game, and that's credit to the Niners too.
Because their run defense has been excellent since that first Rams game, really.
Yeah.
I mean, since that first Ram game, they've been on a roll on defense. And I just wanted to bring this up, what Ekim said right here, because we were talking about this about a minute ago. But he was saying for him, the main concern from the Rams game was the ball security from Jimmy.
Yeah, they scored 14 points off turnovers, right?
Right, and that second one was incredibly costly because that was towards the end of the game. I think people kind of forget about that now, but that could have been. You look at that Tennessee Titans game, and I know some people have talked about how his stats are similar from those games. His quarterback rating is similar, but to me,
the context behind that is just so different.
Yeah, the context is different, but at the same time, like, it's not like Jimmy did. He did about the same amount of work in terms of putting the 49ers in winning position in both of these games. And that against the Titans, we thought he was throwing the game away. And it seems like he did, right? And, when you look back on it, yeah, he did throw away the game, but they also had an opportunity to win the game had things gone their chance, right? They did. Now, you look at this Rams game, and it's just the opposite to me. He has the bad interception, of course, still, but at the end of the day, when you get to the overtime, the regulation in those periods, it was different there because of the 49ers defense making plays and because the Rams failed. I mean, to me, Tennessee held up their end of the bargain because they not only did they take advantage of Jimmy's picks, but they put their team in the best position to at least do something out of it. The Rams against the Rams lost that game themselves. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
Stafford threw them out of that game.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about that too is that, like, they were able to score off of those turnovers still, but it was the
Right.
plays after that kind of lost them. Like when they got that ball with, I think it was like 1:57 left after they, I think they converted they got the ball after the 2-minute warning. You run 3 run plays and you punt the ball. Right. And that was a bold move by Shanahan too on that 4th and 18, because you could have definitely gone for it. But,
Yeah.
to have your trust in your, then, backup punter and your kicker to go with that. And then for the Rams to run it 3 times. And then I think that was kind of the bigger thing. Like it wasn't necessarily like they lost the game in the turnovers, but like what they did after that. I think especially that second turnover when, you just run the ball 3 times without even like really just daring Jimmy Garoppolo to, beat you and like tie this game up. And we've seen it before somehow, some way. Like, and
the Rams didn't establish the run, and because they didn't, when they needed it the most, it hit them in the ass.
Yeah,
man.
and for whatever and for whatever reason, I guess the Rams didn't do their homework on like this is when it's crazy to think that like Jimmy Garoppolo is at his best when
2-minute Jimmy is the best Jimmy I've ever seen.
2-minute Jimmy, when everything is literally on the line, he is the guy to go to. Like that, and that's crazy to think, especially seeing how the course of the game was leading up to that point.
Oh yeah,
but it's just like, did you not watch the other game? Did you not watch the Tennessee game? Did you not watch the Cincinnati game? Like the one time he didn't do it was in the Super Bowl. The one time, and you can maybe even argue like there was too much time on the clock for him to work with. Maybe if they were on the other side of that, maybe he converts it. I don't know. But like that's just like the crazy thing that you think about with Jimmy Garoppolo and kind of
this season,
the roller coaster that he is as a player.
Yeah, this season especially though has amplified that 2-minute aspect where it seemed like 9 different times this year when we wanted to count out Jimmy and say, "Where's Trey Lance? Where's Trey Lance? Where's Trey Lance?" Jimmy would come right back and give you that 2-minute drive you needed before the half. I
wonder if that's something that they're going to be looking to potentially do more just in the run of play during this playoff run. Like, do they run more no huddle and kind of put him in those positions? I don't necessarily know.
They were good in no huddle, man.
And they were good in no huddle. And I think that's something that we saw a little bit with Trey Lance in that Houston game, right? Like they did a little bit more no huddle. And I think, as much as they want to I think they may only do it when they need to, because I think they want to manage the clock against any team that they're going to play, because that's just who the 49ers are. But like when you need a little bit of rhythm, like maybe you feel a little more comfortable putting Jimmy in those, 2-minute pressure filled situations. And again, it's just so crazy to think about that. Like that's when he's at his best. And,
if the interceptions don't affect him, like it's crazy. The attitude of Jimmy Garoppolo. If I could take anything from Jimmy, other than the chin line, obviously.
Dude, and you've got yeah, exactly. And you got to be a tough-minded son of a gun to be able to be in those, pressure-filled situations. And like, exactly.
It's just the
whole cycle, man. And we've talked about like how. Yeah, and we talked about before how like his calmness and his level head, like when he plays, like has like gone not to his advantage and gone to his disadvantage. But these are these moments where it really comes to his advantage in particular, like being able to be just like calm and tranquil in those moments. And that's like the risk that you're willing to take with the bad side of it that comes with feeling like there's a lack of urgency from him or whatever. And then you see moments like this, and it's so hard to just like quantify like how he does it in these moments. It's nuts.
Yeah. You can never write off Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll say that. We've tried so many times, and every single time you think, hey, this is it for him. This is his last straw. This is the last time we'll ever see him in Niners uniform. There he is again. So
credit to Jimmy for
credit to him.
Because
this is a tough situation, and he's like so much crap. Listen, he gets paid a hell of a lot of the money, and I know people bring that up every time, but like just as a person, as a human being, going through what Jimmy went through this season, man.
I don't know if there's any other like guys that can really go through like what Jimmy has gone through this year, especially given the expectation of what fans like want to see in the 49ers quarterback or
Right.
just, the team, that the expectations that they have for that position themselves. And I think that's just something that, you just got to give credit to him, to how he's handled it all this year. And, because it could have easily just like folded and just been like, screw this. I don't know
Yeah, he
why
could
you
have
guys
said,
are
"Hey,
all
my thumb hurts. Screw you, 49ers."
like, and
he
he
could have
wanted
just
to
done
play.
that.
And that's another thing too. Like
I thought he should have
him.
done that, Vinny. I mean, listen, we talked
Yeah.
about it on Twitter Spaces and here, actually. The fact that why would Jimmy have any incentive to play right now? And you know what? Credit to Jim, because all the incentive for him is look, I'm talking about incentive from the perspective that really what I was talking about is there's a lot of downside if he did play and it did go very poorly. But it didn't seem like there was much upside.
And
And Jimmy proved
that's
me
not,
wrong. There was
yeah.
upside for him to play, and there was good reason for him to wanting to keep going out there.
Yeah.
He proved that, man.
And that's not his decision to make either, as to whether he's going to play
No,
or not. That's Kyle Shanahan's decision to play. And Jimmy, I'm sure like you mentioned, he could have just been like, nah, it's just not feeling good enough, but I don't want to play, and for whatever reason. But like, I'm sure
no
there
one
was
would have
something,
blamed him.
and there's yeah, exactly. But there was something in him that he's like, yo, I want to play, and I'm willing to take whatever, as he's been able to do since he got here in San Francisco. He's willing to take any, outcome that comes. I just want to play and, help give my team the best opportunity to succeed. And, in that first half, obviously that was bad Jimmy, but we saw really good Jimmy in that second half, and you got to give credit for that.
Moving on from this LA Rams game a little bit, I do want to talk about the 49ers postseason from a macro perspective, right? I think everyone's focusing on Dallas this week, rightfully so. It's a good team. I think it's a better matchup for the 49ers, and we'll get into that later. But overall, for the 49ers postseason chances, Vinny, it's going to be a tough, my French, it's going to be a tough fucking road if they get there, man.
No, it is.
Because let's
yeah.
talk about it. Dallas first. You're going to have to beat Dallas, right?
Probably
Then
Green Bay.
You're going to Green Bay unless Philly wins. And if you're not, you're right. We don't think Philly's going to win that game. And then you're probably playing either the Bucs, the Rams, or the Cardinals. So
it's either it's either a division game for that NFC Championship game, or Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So, plus, I mean, you
have to get through the Packers in Lambeau. To me, that's the biggest
Dallas
thing.
too. Like Dallas, Dallas, I think is
Well, Dallas to me is the first hurdle, right? But looking at this overall against Green Bay, I think going to Lambeau and trying to beat that team would be too tall of a task for these 49ers.
Because I think that's a good point that you bring up, because a lot of the 49ers dominance that we've seen over these past few years, and even this past year when they played them, really well, those were all at Levi's Stadium.
Right.
Playing in Lambeau in this,
they haven't played a significant game in Lambeau since like 2018. I know they had the one.
It was
they had the one last year. Last year, right? But that was the COVID game where every single wide receiver went out.
Oh no, that was even at Levi's still.
That was at Levi's.
The last, it was. Yeah.
Okay.
I think because that was Richie James went off.
That was the Richie James game.
I think the last like meaningful like either win or playoff game or like time that they played in Lambeau was that the 2013, it feels like, with that division. Yeah. It was the wild card or divisional game. Phil Dawson hit the game-winning field goal. That was the year, like Jim Harbaugh's second to last year before they moved to Levi's. Otherwise, I can't really remember the last time they played in Lambeau.
In January,
that's no easy task, bro. That's no easy task.
Did they be going to Lambeau, January 24th or something? Having to play in that environment, in that weather, against Aaron Rodgers. Oh man, that
on a week's rest too.
On a week's rest, getting that's back
asking
players.
That's asking for a lot, and I think that's asking for a lot, not just for the 49ers, but any team that has on the NFC that has to go there.
And the 49ers should not feel shamed if they go into a Lambeau and don't come out with a victory. Look, this Packers team has been dominant all year to me, and they're not even at their best. And they with that,
better. And with that in mind too, I think in a way, and it's crazy to think because like we hear like we're talking about all these like all these teams that like wouldn't want to go play in Green Bay. And I don't think any team wants to go play in Green Bay. But looking from Green Bay's perspective, I don't think they want to play the Niners again. I
Probably
don't.
not. Probably not.
I don't think that they want to, try. I think this is the one team that they look at and are like, okay, we're going to have some, trouble here because of the trouble that they've seen in the past. Because I don't honestly like, and I think Tampa obviously is in that argument too. But I think you look at the other teams, like, dude, I think honestly for Green Bay, I think it's a cakewalk for any of those other teams, like whoever they play. Like, I mean, let's start with,
Dallas.
I don't think they would have a chance to beat Green Bay. If I'm being completely honest, and if they win, they wouldn't have to play them until the NFC Championship game. I don't think, unless Philly loses or Philly wins, excuse me. But then you look at Arizona and the Rams, the Packers, excuse me, are obviously familiar. With the
Rams, with Sean McVay,
with not just with him, but with Matthew Stafford as well, playing him twice a year. And I know it's a different offense now. And then, Arizona, I'm not giving much. I just don't know still about Cliff Kingsbury, like about coaching. Obviously, he's done well enough to get him.
It would be a funny matchup is Cliff Kingsbury versus Mike McCarthy, the matchup for who's the worst coach. But like, those two to me are the standouts. You look at the playoffs, you look at the head coaches involved. You look across the line, you're like that looks like a playoff coach. That looks like a playoff coach. Mike McCarthy, like what?
Well, but that's the crazy thing. I think he's won a Super Bowl though.
Yeah,
I think
he has,
and that's something that like. That's the crazy thing to think about. It's like,
Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl. I think
they have a better chance than Arizona though.
Yeah, they do. Well, and Mike McCarthy, what's funny is he would be the first coach in NFL history to win a Super Bowl with multiple franchises. So hats off to you, Mike, if you figure it out.
Who knows, man? But going back to the 49ers a little bit, I think, looking at this path for the playoffs, I think, honestly, at least for me, I don't know if I have, honestly, like any expectations for how they're going to do. Because I just think, they're going to be looked at as an underdog throughout each of these, games that they play. But I think, it's just go out and play. And, because I think a lot of us expected them to be like reasonably, like with reasonable expectations. A lot of us expected to be at this point, and from here, like we said, anything can really happen. So would I be shocked if they lost to the Cowboys? Not really, just because I think the Cowboys, I think this is obviously going to be their most winnable game out of the 3 playoff games, just because of scenarios and
I think actually Dallas is the most vulnerable team besides they're the most vulnerable team in the NFC
because
I think
the hardest win I feel like for playoff teams and just playoffs in general and like series, and when it comes to that, I think it's that first one.
Yeah, it is.
That first one is always going to be the hardest one, I think, just because you got to really get over that hump and get that comfortable, and like that's where the pressure, like obviously the pressure like gets higher and more as the playoffs go along. But I think that pressure of that first, like the pressure of that first, of those like later rounds, whereas like this one, it's like kind of like a little more immeasurable. It feels like just because of
it. Because even if you win this game and you lose to the Packers, no one's gonna be mad at that, right? But if you go out and get embarrassed by Dallas, people are gonna be pissed, right?
Would they though? Like I don't know. Just because I think
49ers fans at least want this team to put up a fight. That's what I'm saying. If it looks like a no contest by the end of the third quarter and the Cowboys are just going to run away with it, then I think 49ers fans would be seriously upset. Because
I think they'd be like upset and like I think they'd be upset and disappointed rather than like angry.
Right. Upset, disappointed. You're right. Yeah.
Because I think another thing that like. Yeah.
Hey man, I hope the number one thing on Niners fans' mind, man. I don't even think it's about the team or the players on the team as much as it is. Man, you just hate those Dallas Cowboys.
And like for like myself as like being like a younger generation 49er fan, I haven't really like like
Right.
my dad and like my like uncles and like my family, like my older like siblings and everything have like that hate for the Cowboys. And that like I just like I think my like I guess like hate for them kind of just more comes from like a national perspective, not so much from like the
Me too.
49ers
You see,
Dallas
I grew up
rivalry.
not as much as a 49er fan as I was a football fan forever, and then the 49ers have been a recent phenomenon, but Vinny, ever since I've been an NFL fan my entire life, I've hated the Dallas Cowboys. I can never
Yeah.
remember something as strong as hating a team, and it's not because of the play. Like, I kinda like Tony Romo. I like Des Bryant. I think, DeMarco Murray, a shout out to him. I don't know where he is now, but,
I think he's
like, I don't have
retired.
anything. Yeah, I think he is. But man, Jerry Jones, that whole arrogant Dallas mindset, it's just, uh, it, you you really get disgusted by the Cowboys. Like it's
Yeah,
just
and
I hate that team.
Swan Song kind of just mentioned it too. Like it doesn't feel like that old rivalry that it used to be, just because both teams kind of. I think Dallas had more success when the Niners were bad, and like
Yeah,
they've been like the better team more consistently
but
throughout.
I will
But
say,
they
going
just
into
don't
the
play each other.
weekend,
Yeah,
yeah, the national media is going to focus on this game for all the reasons we think they are, and I think it's important to focus on this type of game because, quite frankly, you just don't get the matchup of these two kind
no,
of like historic rivals in the
and I don't.
playoffs in this meaningful of
Yeah,
a game
and I
and
I
this
don't
good of a
get.
matchup.
Yeah, and I don't get like how this game isn't like isolated on its own. Like I think it's this game's like the 1:30 time slot on CBS, and it's
Yeah,
like the
on
Nickelodeon
Sunday.
game.
Yeah,
I thought I thought this game could have definitely should have maybe even should have been the Monday night game.
Monday or
That you
Sunday night. Yeah,
Monday or like Sunday night, because this is the game that everybody is going to have their eyes, I think, glued on here. Because I think looking at the other matchups, I mean, Tampa versus Philly, like, okay. I think that
yeah.
Rams Cardinals game is obviously going to be good. Two divisional teams going at it. Then you look at the
Bills,
AFC,
Pats,
Bills Patriots. Then you got
Cardinals, or sorry, Raiders, and is it
Raiders and Bengals, and then you
Bengals?
have
Yeah,
Chiefs and
Steelers.
uh, Chiefs and Steelers. Like those just aren't like
Yeah,
very
this Chiefs
appealing.
Steelers is the Sunday night game. Like, what the hell is going on with that? Why?
Like
Why?
this game should be like the game of the week per
Well,
se.
that game just shouldn't even be on Sunday night in the first place.
No,
I mean,
I'm saying the
oh yeah, the
no, Niner
49ers
game.
game should
What game is
definitely
the Sunday?
be.
Is the Kansas City game the Sunday night
Yes,
game?
Kansas City Pittsburgh is Sunday
Oh
night
my,
football. Monday night
that's
is LA
I don't like.
Arizona, which is pretty good. I kind of agree with that because I think that's
I
a
don't
good enough
mind
game.
that.
But you
I
know
don't
what I
really
think
mind
was
that.
happening is they have to choose an AFC game and an NFC game for the night national games, and they can't go back to back NFC Sunday night and Monday
Yeah,
night
but there's definitely a way
because of
that
the
you could
TV
have.
contracts and
Because is
stuff. So
what's the AFC? When do the Bills and Patriots play? Because I feel
they
like
play
that's a good start.
Saturday.
Okay, so that's like the Saturday morning one, right?
Oh, I'm not sure about it. It's either
Okay.
Saturday afternoon, Saturday night.
Okay.
But you know what? Let's get
I'll
back to
just look at it.
Dallas
Yeah.
because I know we're
Yeah.
talking about the schedule, but we got to get a little back on track.
Yeah.
I wanted to get back to this comment that I saw. Let's talk about the 49ers' best matchups versus Dallas. So Willie mentioned, hey, can our corners keep up with their receivers? We're going to find out Sunday. So this is one of the more interesting matchups from the 49ers perspective on both sides, actually. I think the 49ers wide receivers versus the Dallas corners and then the Dallas the Dallas, you know what I mean, vice versa. So
Yeah.
going both the ways, that wide receiver cornerback matchup, I think it's going to be fascinating because from the 49ers perspective of things, some people may think Trayvon Diggs is really good. He's not that good. They're gonna absolutely.
We talked about that last week. Or a couple weeks ago.
I think the 49ers are gonna put Trayvon Diggs in a blender. And when I say that, I mean Deebo Samuel's gonna be running past him, Ayuk's gonna be running past him. They're gonna have open field. Now, I also think he'll probably get a pick this game because at the end of the day, his ball skills are so elite that if you throw it anywhere near him, he's probably going to have a good chance to catch it, and Jimmy is going to give him that opportunity once this game. I'm kind of banking on that, actually. But I think the 49ers actually have the better matchup in terms of I prefer their wide receivers versus the Dallas corners than the other way around, because I think, the 49ers corners versus those two Dallas. So they're the two big wide receivers for Dallas, CD and Amari, right? And they're going to flex in and out of the slot. They're going to move them all over the place. They lost Michael Gallup, obviously torn ACL last week or a week before. Big loss, but they still have Cedric Wilson. People think Zeke is washed. Well, guess what? They got a guy right behind him who's – well, first of all, Vinny, I'm not going to say Zeke is washed, but Zeke's not that good at football. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, but he's not like the
Tony Pollard is a name you are going to know by the end of this 49ers game, because he is the best playmaker out of that Dallas backfield. Really, I have Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott in fantasy leagues this season. Tony Pollard is a much, much better running back than Ezekiel Elliott is. I am very confident in saying that. I think 49ers fans are going to find out just how good Pollard is, because Pollard, he not only is he going to get runs from the backfield, they use him out wide. They're going to use him as their passing down back, and he returns kicks for them. This guy's going to be electric, and I think that's the one playmaker that if the 49ers can't contain him, I think it gets really out of hand, because then everything else is going to play off that running game for Dallas, right? They've struggled to establish the run in these last few weeks here. Zeke in particular has kind of struggled, although he has been dealing with injuries. But yeah, I think this is going to be a really fascinating matchup. Dallas's offense is obviously very good, but 49ers defense is peaking at the right time of the season. And in particular, their corners are peaking at the right time of the season, really. Emmanuel Mosley and Ambry Thomas, none of them are superstars, Vinny, right? But they're also better than the replacement level player at the position, or even the average player. I would say they're both, I think, above average corners.
Yeah,
for that
and that's
cornerback 1 and 2 spot.
And that's another crazy thing to talk. We talk about, Jimmy and like how, like before, like when they were still playing him and when we felt like the season was lost and that, like, why aren't we getting these rookies reps and everything? Like Ambry Thomas was a guy earlier in the season. He wasn't even making the active roster. And he was hurt for a little bit.
He was a healthy scratch, man.
And he was a healthy scratch for like so many weeks. But when he put him in and you saw his development and you saw how good he ended up being, I think Dallas is going to look at that matchup with Ambry Thomas and try to attack that as much as possible still. But I think looking at it, you do feel a little bit more comfortable than, say, you would have been a few weeks ago if
Michael Gallup was still healthy.
Michael Gallup was still there, and Josh Norman's still being in the lineup. I think you feel a little bit more comfortable now than you did a few weeks ago. And I think obviously like those corners are playing, really well, and like you mentioned, playing well at the right time. But I think we're also seeing that from the pass rush as well. That's helping those corners help, get
shout out to Eric Armstead, man. Armstead had Armstead's a hell of an end of the season, man.
Yeah, he's playing well at the right time. Bosa's still being Nick Bosa.
Yeah, and I got a buddy, Ebukam, man. They're all
and DJ Jones, like all those guys, and like
they got 5 or 6 legit defensive linemen.
Yeah, and they're running 10. They have 10 guys, like 10 D line guys that they bring every week. And
Charles Amenahue
as well. Like I think, and I have a buddy, who's a Cowboys
Contavious Street. Sorry, I just forgot.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin Givens, like that's another guy. Like, name. And I think the funny thing is, it's like, I got a buddy who's a Dallas Cowboys fan. He's like, I was like, you better watch out for Bosa, right? And like, we're obviously trash talking everything. He's like, I feel comfortable with Tyron Smith out there. I'm like, are you sure? With Tyron Smith versus Nick Bosa, are you sure? So like, I think that's just that's going to be another good matchup to watch. And like individual matchups, I mean, I think the one is going to be, obviously look at Trayvon Diggs versus either Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. And again, I think, like what you mentioned, that's a guy that you can really attack, and he's going to make plays for sure. But like we mentioned before, he gave up 1,000 yards this year. Like that's something that
if you watch most of his interceptions, Vinny, like we talked about this exact thing like maybe a month ago. I remember the interception he caught versus the Falcons against Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is running in front of Trayvon Diggs, and Matt Ryan just misses him and throws it way early and just throws it directly to Diggs. Diggs is going to catch that every time. If you put the ball within his catch radius, he will get it. So it's just a matter of if Jimmy is going to put the ball in harm's way.
and I think another matchup that I'm looking forward to is, I mean, looking at the Niners offense versus the Cowboys defense in particular. I think you look at it's kind of weird one. Kyle Shanahan versus Micah Parsons. What do they do? And like that defensive, and Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys.
Oh yeah, well, Kyle versus Dan Quinn is going to be amazing.
Well, I think, like, what does Kyle Shanahan do to get Micah Parsons out of the game? And like, what eye candy is he going to have out there to make Micah Parsons as a rookie, although he is, one of the best defensive players in the league already? What is he going to do to make him make those on-the-fly decisions and have them make those right decisions? I think that's where you give the edge to Shanahan a little bit, just because, he's played against guys. Maybe he hasn't played a guy like Micah Parsons in particular, but he's played against teams that have those big players that he tries to neutralize as much as they can. And that's not to say, like, they're not gonna make plays. They tried to neutralize Jalen Ramsey last week. He got a pick. Like, that's like, good players like that are going to make plays, and they're going to, show their value on the field. But the main goal here is to try to neutralize it as best you can to give your team the best position to win. And I think Kyle Shanahan can, do that, not just with, with the running game, and also with kind of just like maybe sometimes even challenging him and testing him, because that was something that he did, on Sunday with, in particular, Jalen Ramsey. Like, Kyle Shanahan wasn't afraid to throw to Jalen Ramsey. No. And I think that's, kudos to him, and you're going to live with those consequences just because Jalen Ramsey is the second best defensive player in the league. Like, right. And I think, that's something that they can look forward to heading into this game is, how are they going to look at that matchup? And then real quick, looking at the Niners defense versus the Cowboys offense, I think you obviously look at individual matchups. I mean, Fred Warner versus Zeke, obviously, then you look at those corners versus those, strong receivers. But I think you also, I mean, and maybe more so it's looking at Fred Warner versus Dak Prescott, kind of like how the quarterbacks of, like, the quarterback of one team and then the quarterback of the other team, kind of like how they quarterback of the defense, and how they kind of like work those matchups. But I think this game is ultimately, like every game in the NFL, I think it's going to be up at the line.
Right.
Niners
That's exactly where I was going, Vinny. This is going to be decided in the trenches and off the turnovers and what the teams do with them.
And that's what the 49ers want.
Exactly. That's the game plan they want to play into. And you know what? It's also the game plan that they don't want to play into, because if that game plan doesn't go their way, it's catastrophic. But the way they're going to win is how they won against the Rams, following that run game. Because when Kyle commits to that run game in that way that he did against the Rams and just absolutely demoralize them against this type of defense that doesn't have as good as a run defense and has really struggled against the run, I think the 49ers are going to have a really good chance at controlling the game. To me, and I see a Cowboys fans asking how we honestly feel about the game. Josh, my honest opinion is it's
up in the air, honestly.
No, you know what? It all depends on this. Jimmy cannot have interceptions, and he cannot have a fumble against Dallas. The 49ers, you know what? I'll say this. He can probably commit one turnover that's really costly. But if it's two that were as costly as it was against the Rams or the Titans, then I think your chances are a little less. Now, you never know. But I think in this type of game, it's really going to come down to whether or not Jimmy G takes the 49ers out of this game. And I hate to say it like that, but to me, that's really what this is. I think the 49ers have almost every single other advantage: coaching advantage, scheme advantage, player advantage. If not, for most of those situations, it's a neutral outcome for the 49ers. They're definitely not on the opposite end, of where you want to be for any of these matchups. There isn't one where I'm feeling like, oh yeah, the Cowboys do this really well, the 49ers do not do this well. I think it's across the board. It's a very good matchup for the 49ers team. I'm just not sure how this matchup is going to fare for Jimmy Garoppolo, and I hate to make it about him, but I think it really is going to come down to how many mistakes he makes.
Yeah, and
Because
I think that
he doesn't need
ultimately,
to have big throws, Vinny. He just needs to not make these mistakes that we get so frustrated
yeah,
seeing.
and I think what we've seen in the past, when the last time the Niners were in the playoffs, right, when he's made that like one or two mistakes, they've kind of just run the ball a little more, and not like necessarily like they kind of took the ball out of his hands, but also like they didn't pass when they only passed when they absolutely needed to. And I
Right.
think this is where you look at potentially having a big Elijah Mitchell game here. Like this could be his like game, kind of like what Raheem did, and not to say he's going to run for 220 yards
20.
and
Yeah. No.
4 touchdowns, but like this could be like the
Him and
welcome.
Debo could collectively, they could put some yards
They
on
could
the
run. They
Cowboys.
could collectively run for maybe like 150, 200, but like, and that's if they do really, really well. But I think, um, I think, yeah, this is going to be an Elijah Mitchell game. I feel, and you hope to, maybe I like to see George Kittle get involved a little more as well.
Yeah, you would. I
So
mean,
hopefully that can happen as well.
it's tough with the Kittle thing, and because they always find a way to get Debo the ball this season, Vinny. But there are these games and these stretches of games that we see where Kittle just doesn't get the volume and the target share that he should be. But at the same time, you know what? I think, and this will kind of lead us into our next topic, with the emergence of the wide receivers on the 49ers and how deep that room is for how good we actually thought they would be going into the season. They don't need Kittle as much as we thought they did. Now, listen, it's great to have George Kittle. I'm not saying, he's not needed. But when you look at a guy like Juwan Jennings, I mean, Vinny,
Yeah,
Juwan Jennings is a godsend for the 49ers because, first of all, he might be the best block.
another late round pick.
He is Kendrick Bourne 2.0. I honestly believe that. And you know what? He might be even better because while he can do everything Kendrick Bourne did in the passing game, Kendrick Bourne cannot do what Juwan Jennings does in the run game. Juwan Jennings is already one of the best run run blocking wide recievers in the league. Allen Lazard is really the staple across the league, but I think he might even be better than Lazard is in that skill set.
And I think that one, obviously he had four receptions, 96 yards, and 2 tutties.
So it was
right?
6 for 94,
There's 694,
6 for 90.
Yeah, 7 targets. But I think obviously those touchdowns are good plays that he had. Because I think those were, but I think the best play that he had was that that block that he had to give Debo that touchdown. I think that was the best play that he had all game, and I think that's the value that he brings in. Like we seen him before, like that Jacksonville game. Like he's not afraid to get physical, and like he's gonna cause problems for defenders. Like I said in that Jacksonville game, like he caused someone to be ejected just because he was like bullying them the whole game, and that those are the kind of guys that Shanahan really loves and that he wants to have on their team. And I saw
and he
something.
bullies in the run game, Vinny, but man, he's a bully at the catch point. Like he is aggressive, physical. He's what the 49ers have been looking for from that third receiver since they figured out that Debo and Ayuk were their 1 and 2. He's that last piece of the puzzle that he does all those things that they don't have that guy for right now,
Yeah, and I think I saw something the other day that I think it was either after the game or yesterday that Juwan Jennings someone tweeted that Juwan Jennings is the guy Jalen Hurd was supposed to be. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case, just because I don't think it's hard to compare those two kinds of play styles. But they were talking about Jalen Hurd being a running back and putting him in the backfield. I don't think they have any intentions with doing that with Juwan Jennings. No. But I think the more comparable person, like everybody's mentioned, like we mentioned, Kendrick Bourne, and I think that's that kind of guy that you can,
well, he's going to play that role.
He's going to play that role. He's going to make those tough catches down the middle of the field.
I wouldn't compare them player to player, Vinny, necessarily, but for the role the 49ers need from their third receiver, for what they want out of Juwan Jennings, he's absolutely doing what Kendrick Bourne has been doing, in the sense that he run blocks when they need to. He's excellent at it, and they don't have to disguise their offense around, hey, Juwan Jennings is in. This means we're like with his progression that we've seen from him as a pass catcher this season, he's gotten, first 9 weeks of the season, I think he had 4 targets. He has 33 cents. This is a guy that they just didn't trust early on. It was Mohamed Sanu. I see it in the comments. People are talking about, why the hell was Mohamed Sanu in this position all season? And I think it's because Kyle trusted him more. And guess what? Juwan Jennings earned that trust because I believe Sanu goes on IR before week 10, right? That's that cutoff date I mentioned. Jennings, since it's eight games, 33 targets, 20-something catches. This is a guy who's just been waiting for the right opportunity, and now he finally has it. And guess what? He's taking the most. He's making the most of that opportunity. And moving forward, like I see in the comments, he's a free agent this offseason. So
I don't think he is, no.
So he's technically a free agent, but he's an exclusive rights free agent. So the 49ers, it's better than restricted free agency, where I believe they'll essentially get to have Jennings back as long as they want him for less than $3 million on a 1 or 2 year deal, sort of like.
Is that what they did with Mosley?
Yeah, so that I think it's a very similar thing to Mosley. I'm actually looking it up right now.
Wait, wasn't he drafted only like?
This is only second year. He was a 7th round pick though, so that's the difference.
So those contracts are like it's like still only like 3 years or whatever. Okay.
Right. So yeah. So here's what it is. He does have 4 years, but they have the exclusive right free agent option this offseason. So then that
probably exercise. They'll probably exercise that. Yeah.
So yeah, he's kind of on a 4-year deal. It's a 4-year deal, but it isn't. It's just the way they call it that. But they'll have Jennings back for at least next year and the year after, I believe, based off his contract. But Jennings was a great find for the 49ers, and he's the type of guy along with Elijah Mitchell. All these like late late round guys, the 49ers they keep finding starters, man.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too. Like you got another late round guy that they're getting, valuable production out of, and that kind of. Well, I mean that we won't know until the offseason officially starts, but you may not have that luxury as much if you lose a Adam Peters who's like flirting with other. I mean the Giants requested him to interview for that.
Why can't anyone request Parag for an interview, man? I don't get it. I don't get it.
If you're like to talk about this a little bit, do you think there's any chance that he would want that Giants job?
Yeah, I actually do, because he interviewed for I believe the Denver and the Carolina job last year, right, Vinny? Yeah. So with those 2 jobs in particular, for one, Carolina, that was never going to happen because Matt Rule, I believe, whoever he ended up hiring was someone he wanted, and it was kind of like a buddy-buddy deal. And then with the Broncos, they actually hired this GM candidate whose name I can't remember for the life of me right now. But last offseason, the Broncos hired the highest, most what's the word I'm looking for? Credentialed GM candidate in years. This guy who was hired by the Broncos was in the Vikings organization for years and was considered responsible for a lot of the building of that.
Right? Is that his name?
I don't want to get it wrong. But point being is that both of those situations, they interviewed Adam Peters, but they were also in a spot where it seems like they already maybe had their minds made up. George Patton. But yeah, I think there should be interest for Adam Peters. I mean, for him, to me, it's the next logical step up. If the 49ers weren't gonna, because I see it from this perspective from Adam Peters, right? Maybe the 49ers would have fired John if they wouldn't have made the playoffs, and maybe they would have promoted Adam Peters. So maybe in his mind, he's looking at his situation as if, hey, I can wait and I can see if this 49ers thing is going to work out and I can stay here and be promoted to GM. Great. If not, you can always wait out that quote unquote right opportunity. And you know what? If he feels like the Giants are the right opportunity, which that disaster is.
That's what franchise. Like I just don't know if I think Adam Peters is a smart enough guy to not take a GM job just because it's a GM job. I think he's really.
I don't know about that actually. Just because with the GM jobs in the league, you never know when you're going to get offered them. One off season you're getting offers and you're getting interviews, and the next off season
Yeah.
you're not. I mean, remember Eric Bieniemy, right? He's supposed to have been a head coach for the last 3 off seasons. Still not happening. So you never know with this sort of thing. I think, for these guys, you just got to take the best advantage of your situation. And I wouldn't blame Adam Peters at all for trying to do that with the Giants.
Yeah, I think one way or another, Adam Peters will be a GM next year. Because there could potentially be a scenario where, they do decide to just promote everybody else so that they can give
it's like what they did
Adam
with McDaniel this offseason, right? They promoted Micah McDaniel to offensive coordinator knowing the Dolphins wanted him. And guess what? The Dolphins want him even more now. They want to hire him as the freaking head coach. So,
God, by the way, that's so dumb. I don't know why they did that. I know that's like,
man, Brian Flores is going to be a head coach by the end of this week. It's so ridiculously
dumb. Chicago, I think that was his first interview. Yeah. I think Chicago,
Jacksonville, any of these teams.
Dude, I think Chicago in particular, I think the second he walks into the building, there's no way you can let him out without offering him that head coaching job. I think that's a big mistake on Chicago's end, because
maybe he doesn't want to go to another dysfunctional organization though again, I think from Brian Floyd's perspective, if he has the choice, you at least would
it is Miami and Chicago do feel like a little similar in some ways. They're like
they've competed before. Franchises that
they've competed in the past. They're not the worst team in their division. They still have two other teams.
They're not like the Cleveland Browns, who have no history and haven't been good since the 60s and are winless.
There's still two other teams above them that are probably a little better than them in a way. I think maybe if Minnesota fires Mike Zimmer, maybe that's the spot for Brian Flores. And maybe that's gives him a little bit more incentive, or maybe that's a little more appealing than the Chicago job. But I think if you're the Bears, ultimately you can't control whether Brian Flores says yes or no. And, we'll get back to the 49er stuff after this. But if you're the Bears, you can't let him out of your building, because I think that's just such a valuable thing, not just for the team, but maybe for a guy like Justin Fields as well, because I think Justin Fields will be better than Tua, and I think that's a little more incentivizing for him. But
God, man, the Miami Dolphins just shooting themselves in the foot.
God, Miami should. Yeah, it was funny. Someone tweeted after Shefty tweeted that that Brian Flores was on the search. A lot of teams are searching for Brian Flores to be their next head coach. One guy tweeted Miami would be a great spot, just because I don't know why they fired him in the first place. But
man, that's a head scratcher. And you know what? People all the time talk about in the middle of the season are oh, fire Kyle Shanahan. I don't think so.
He would have been if they were to have lost and they were to have fired him, he would have been hired the next day.
Yeah, he would be hired right now. I mean,
they would call him. They would call Kyle. I'm trying not to. I'm exaggerating, obviously, a little bit, but I feel like this is how these conversations would go. Hey, Kyle, do you want a job here? Kyle says yes. Okay, you're hired. That's it. You don't need an interview for Kyle Shanahan. You don't. You really don't.
You don't. You know exactly what you're getting with Kyle. And talking about getting exactly what you're getting. Let's talk about the 49ers quarterback situation. We kind of glossed over this topic earlier because we were really talking about Jimmy, his performance versus the Rams. We didn't even touch on Trey Lance, and this is the first time we've mentioned him maybe this entire show, which, hey, good for us. 53 minutes in, no mention of Trey Lance.
We said his name a couple times, but there wasn't any
We didn't have serious Trey Lance conversation.
We didn't have a Trey Lance topic, man.
Let's have a serious Trey Lance topic right now. I had been, going gung-ho with this whole idea that the 49ers wasted this season. They aren't Super Bowl contenders. They have a rookie quarterback who needs experience. They're not getting him experience, and instead they're trying to raise the trade value of their current quarterback, who is more expensive than he should be. Does that sum it up good?
Roughly, yeah, I think so.
So let's get back to this, Vinny. They started off the offseason with really the search for quarterback. That was the entire discussion for the 49ers, Vinny. It was, hey, is Sam Darnold going to be the 49ers quarterback? Is Matthew Stafford going to be the 49ers quarterback? Is Deshaun Watson going to be the 49ers quarterback? Is Joe Flacco going to be the 49ers quarterback?
Teddy
Andy
Bridgewater,
Dalton, Teddy Bridgewater,
Aaron Rodgers, like all
Aaron
those guys.
Rodgers, Patrick. No, not Patrick Mahomes, but you get the
He
idea.
He was the one guy. Carson Wentz,
another one. I mean, it was almost as if the 49ers wanted any quarterback besides Jimmy Garoppolo, which honestly is the truth. But getting back to, what we're talking about, did the 49ers make the right quarterback decision? For one, we don't know yet because we still have to see what happens with Trey Lance. But Vinny, let's make some assumptions. Let's say the 49ers, and I think this is I feel like I'm overreaching. Let's assume first they aren't winning the Super Bowl this year. I'm not. I know people think it's possible.
If they pull a New York Giants wild card, if they win, oh my.
But let's not go there because we don't think that's happening, right? Let's just keep that out of our. We report on things as they happen. We don't try and anticipate. Well, even though I'm going to try and anticipate here, we're not trying to.
This is just speculation.
This is just speculation. Most likely speculation. Let's say 49ers don't win the Super Bowl. They get rid of Jimmy this offseason. Trey Lance is the starter. He balls out next year. They put themselves in a position to contend. I still think the 49ers did not make the right decision, Vinny, and I'll tell you why. It's because, and we've talked about this point specifically before, and this is what always gets to me, and this is the most important thing, I think, of all of this in terms of team building, in terms of you're a 49ers fan, this is all you should care about. They misevaluated their Super Bowl window, Vinny. They misevaluated it, and they tried to get their cake and eat it too, right? What they tried to do was say, we think we have a Super Bowl window now this year. We think 2021, Jimmy Garoppolo, this team around him, the guys we can bring back in free agency, that is a Super Bowl worthy contending squad. Okay. Then at the same time, they decided we want a quarterback to be ready for next season when we know we don't want Jimmy anymore so that we can keep contending. The only problem with that plan, Vinny, is that Trey Lance needs at least in my opinion, he needs experience before you expect him to be that guy for the 49ers. Expecting him to do what Patrick Mahomes did in his first year, not only, Patrick Mahomes didn't even win the Super Bowl his first year. He had a 50-touchdown season, AFC championship. If Trey Lance got to the NFC championship next season, oh my God, that is such a success, no doubt at all. But the point being, Vinny, is that the 49ers are looking to create a Super Bowl window when you draft Trey Lance, right? That is the point of this entire exercise. That is why you do the rookie quarterback experience, the rookie quarterback contract. It's because you look at teams who are contending right now. Browns aren't a good example. Bills, Cardinals. You can go down the line. There are so many good examples of teams who are taking advantage of that rookie cornerback.
Kansas City did that.
Kansas City. The main difference between those teams further down the line is that they have to pay their freaking quarterback. Right now, the 49ers could be in a 4-year window where they're paying their quarterback bottom 5 in the league in terms of paying him, right? There are so many advantages to that. I don't even want to get into that today. Point being is that instead of taking advantage of that super advantage, which to me is the biggest advantage in team building in the NFL, they decided that they were going to stick with Jimmy so that they could either, for one of maybe a few reasons, either one, that they wanted to raise his trade value, two, that they wanted to make the playoffs and that they had to win this season, or both. Doesn't matter to me. Overall, if they thought they were going to win the Super Bowl this year, they were delusional. And if they pitched as if they were going to win it and knew they weren't, then they're liars. And you know what? You can be a liar in the NFL. I don't have much of a problem with that. What I have a problem with is a team not taking the best advantage of this opportunity with Trey Lance. And that if you think and you're not going, but if you're of the opinion that your team isn't Super Bowl worthy, you should be playing Trey Lance, because at the end of the day, playing Trey Lance now will make your team better in the future because he gets that experience this season. And instead of waiting for him to go through his lumps next season and start his first playoff game next season and deal with all the crap and bullshit that you have to deal with as a first-year starter. He could have dealt with it this season. He didn't even have to start from week 1, Vinny. He could have done what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, right? Which is when the opportunity presented itself, they pulled the trigger and switched everything over to cater to him and got him 6 games of regular season experience and the playoff game under his belt. To me, that is the biggest thing in Lamar's career more than anything. He won the MVP the year after he did that. So when you look at the quarterback position as a whole, the 49ers taking advantage of it and them making the right decision, look, they made the playoffs. That makes people feel very vindicated about playing Jimmy Garoppolo this season. But I'm sorry, one game would have made the difference between you feeling vindicated and you feeling like this was a waste of the season. What? To me, that's the biggest problem here, is that everyone is teeter-tottering on, oh my God, they make the playoffs, they don't. This team isn't a Super Bowl team. That is me just being brutally honest. They are not a Super Bowl team. And because of that, playing Jimmy Garoppolo this entire season, I don't want to say it's a waste of time because it's harsh to say that, but it's not a useful use of the 49ers time, the great players on this team time, or Trey Lance's time, because you have a specific timeline with Trey Lance where you want to work it out by the end of his rookie contract, right? And you want to take the most advantage of that and get the most experience before you have that payout date, before you have to pay him so much money that you take yourself out of contention. The 49ers, to me, they just delayed what they're doing for a year, and now they have to deal with those problems of Trey Lance next season instead of this season when they weren't even necessarily going to be Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, and like with –
sorry.
So, like, I know I mentioned – no, you're good. I mentioned before that, I feel like the 49ers, like, in a way could have, like, didn't, like, optimize what I think that could have happened with this season. But looking back on it now, I think you're asking – like, say, like, I think you would have been asking a lot from Trey Lance to put them in this spot. Like, and let me ask you this. Like, I want to just talk about, like, this season in particular. Does Trey Lance win that game last week if he's put in that spot?
I don't know. And we'll never know the answer to that question.
And I think that's the point. I just think we would have never really known. And I think ultimately, from a fan's perspective, I think they're a lot more, like, and I think from the team as well, I think you're a lot more happy being 10-7 with Garoppolo more so than you would have been, say, 8-9 or 7-10 with Trey Lance. Ultimately, just because the team needed to, like, the team this year, and, like, you can, like,
they needed to win because Kyle and John needed to win. Look,
yeah, absolutely. And
that to me is the main thing here.
And I think with that, like, with the plan that they had for this year, I think they did make the right decision. And I think the critique that you may have in particular with it is the plan itself more so than how the plan was executed.
Right.
And so, like, I think with the plan that they had with this, I think obviously it worked out. And I think they did make the right decision because, again, you'd be asking so much of Trey Lance to put them in this spot. And yeah, maybe he would have had the best chance to do that out of all the rookie quarterbacks in this league that were drafted this year, maybe outside of Mac Jones. Like, but I think
but Vinny, this gets back to my central issue, which is that either A, 49ers they misevaluated their team going into the season, or B, they cared about making the playoffs more than winning a Super Bowl.
And that's I think that's where, like, maybe you like flaw those things more so than, like, how the actual
right.
How
because
it
at the end
went.
of the day, the quarterback situation probably worked out in their favor, right? They made the playoffs. Jimmy, not a complete disaster. Oh, whatever. I mean, I think I understand what you're saying absolutely, but what I'll say is this, Vinny, is that you're right that they needed to win. Jimmy Garoppolo definitely gave them the best stability to win and give them the best chances to guarantee a playoff spot. But to me, Trey Lance is going to be the one who gives them the best chance to win a Super Bowl, whether it's this year or beyond.
Yeah, if they were to have gone 10-7 and be in the same spot with Trey Lance, then I think you feel, like you said, even more, vindicated and happy, and you don't.
I think they'd have a much better chance at winning the Super Bowl, right? I think they would be actual legit Super Bowl contenders if Trey Lance had started the entire year and they were in
Yeah,
this position.
and I think that's like
the upside of Trey Lance, that would win you the Super Bowl.
Like that's obviously a lot more, like gives you a little more optimism if they were to do that, but you weren't necessarily guaranteed that because of
well, and I'll
like
say this, Vinny, even if they had missed the playoffs with Trey Lance, they were 9-8 and they were the last team out of the playoffs, but Trey Lance looked awesome. And going into this next season, everyone was like, "Oh my God, the 49ers." Yeah. I wouldn't really, if you had told me, "Hey, you can either have this or Jimmy start and you make the playoffs," I would have been like, you know what? Probably not going to win the Super Bowl. I'd rather have Trey Lance be that guy this year so that next year he can be that guy even more. And that's what I always get back to, Vinny. It's all about that Super Bowl window. And the 49ers not potentially making the most advantage of it.
And I think the goal, and I think with the Vish, who we need to get on the show here soon, because Vish would be awesome to have as a guest. Us three young guns talking it out. But I think one thing that he had mentioned that I think is so true is like you trade for a guy like Trey Lance to give yourself that best chance to win the Super Bowl. Exactly. And nothing is guaranteed from that. And we're not saying, because you look at, there's a lot of great quarterbacks in the league, right? Aaron Rodgers has only won one Super Bowl. Drew Brees only won, I think, one Super Bowl himself as well. Like, it's so hard.
Joe Flacco, elite guy, only one Super Bowl.
Yeah, and people were saying, like, that it would be kind of a fail if they weren't to make the Super Bowl or win one during this time. I think ultimately the criticism would be if they had just as good of a chance to make the Super Bowl if they had kept Jimmy Garoppolo more so than making for this trade. I think that's where the criticism kind of goes. Because if they were, say, these next 3 years when Trey Lance goes, they do like what Harbaugh did. They go to 2 NFC championship games and they lose both, and they make one Super Bowl and they don't win it. I think that's a lot better than what it could have been, like being on the fringe, being on the edge, because it went well for them this year and they did get that spot, but they could be in the same position again next year, or other teams that find themselves in these same positions before, and they didn't make it over that hump and they weren't a playoff team. So that's where I think Trey Lance making this trade, and there's an understanding that he is going to be the quarterback of the future of this team. Oh, yeah. But I think, and with that, you make a trade for Trey Lance to give yourself what you believe is a better chance of competing and making a Super Bowl, because Super Bowls are not guaranteed unless you're Tom Brady and you're just, one of one, right? Because no other, like, I don't know if we'll ever see like someone as successful as Tom Brady, if I'm being completely honest, like, because maybe Patrick Mahomes is that guy, and like how many guys have been,
but even a guy like Russell Wilson, right? Like think about how he started off his career and where he is now. I mean, he's the perfect example of the rookie quarterback experiment with the rookie pay scale, is that you can take advantage of it when it's an advantage, but when it becomes a disadvantage because they're so highly paid.
Yeah, and there's going to be that time where, you feel like enough's enough and you kind of just got to, let it go. And I think the Seahawks are kind of feeling that now. Maybe, some of them will want just like a refresh at quarterback because it just hasn't been like working, and that's fine. But at least they gave themselves those, 8 or 9 years from 2012 to 2013 where, outside of from 2012 to, now, when this was their, second year out of all their time since Russell Wilson was there that they missed the playoffs.
First losing season.
You're willing to have that more so than, kind of like the up and down of, what we've kind of seen from Jimmy Garoppolo during his time. So the point here being, like, obviously, like, this Trey Lance thing is going to happen and it's going to happen soon. And there's no guarantee that he is going to be the, I guess, savior of the franchise, because there were many that thought that Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be that guy. And there were some signs that, like, maybe you did see that was like, okay, they made that Super Bowl in 2019. Maybe he is, but like, ultimately you got to get more sample size from him. And, it may be a little delayed from Trey Lance's perspective. I think it will be, but I don't know, like, how much it will really change once we see a full year from him. And I think that's just ultimately what we're just going to have to wait for.
Yeah, and I think it's really just at the end of the day, it's a big what if scenario, right? We're just not going to know the answers to all
And
these
it's so hard to predict
asking.
those. It's so hard to predict those what ifs and like what we haven't seen. All we can do is based off stuff that we've seen. So
yeah,
as long as kind of mentioned here, like Seahawks,
the Seahawks, they'll be able to reload next year.
Aren't they? They don't have a first round pick though, right?
They do not. But this is the last year of that, so they'll have their first round pick next year.
Do they have a ton of? Do they have money?
So they'll have money. It's kind of they.
Oh, if they trade Russell Wilson, right?
There's a lot of weird stuff going on with their cap. I'm not as familiar. Although I know they have the opportunity to potentially spend big. They just have to make other decisions. I'm not sure though at this current moment. But
they're in a better spot. They're in a worse spot than the Niners are right now. I'll tell you that.
Probably, yeah, probably. But let's get back to the central question for a minute, and then we'll end there. Did they make the right quarterback decision?
I think so. I with the plan that they had, again, you can critique the plan itself, but for the plan they had,
yeah, and I think that's what I'm saying here.
Yeah,
right?
I think
it's more about did they make the right quarterback decision this year? Maybe, and in the future it might benefit Trey Lance, but did they have the right plan at quarterback going into the season with Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance? Right. I don't think so. I just think it was a poor plan.
Let me ask you this then. Did Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value go up regardless of what happens in the playoffs? Did it go up or down
over the course of this regular season?
Yeah. Or did it stay the same?
I think it stayed the same. I don't think he proved any more or hurt himself any less. You know, he's a guy who gets injured sometimes, and when he's not injured, he's good enough when the team is around him to do some stuff. Like to me, he's the same guy I've seen the entire time.
Like, are more teams, do you think, now going to be more, maybe because it's a little different, just because we know a little more about the quarterback class of this year and everything, but do you think more teams are going to be willing to sacrifice maybe a little more to trade for Garoppolo, more so than what they would have if they were to try to trade for him in the offseason?
No, I think it's about the same, because I think what we were seeing was that the Patriots really wanted him for the rumor is a second round pick. I think it was more like a third, honestly. But let's just say the rumor is they wanted a third round pick, the 49ers, or they wanted to give up a third round pick. The 49ers wanted a second or a first. To me, that doesn't change. Like, whatever that negotiating was for that second or third round pick, Jimmy's about there, if not slightly worse, right? Maybe a third or a fourth at this point. But to me, the difference between the third and a second, it's all relative. Like, it kind of just is what it is. And it's more about the market that offseason than it is about that specific quarterback.
Yeah, and I think another thing to talk about too is, like, in Swanson kind of mentioned here that, like, he has a Steelers fan that would, like, love Jimmy G. Like, what teams really, like, want him?
Just because I feel a few, but I don't think.
I think there's a few, but
it's Cleveland and Pittsburgh at the top of the list. But after that,
I think with that too, it's just like, I think a lot of people, like, are fine with Jimmy if they don't get their main guy that they would want. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, say if they try to get,
he's the contingency plan for everyone.
He's for a lot of people, and I think that's not a bad thing.
Denver might need a quarterback next season.
And I think, again, like, I don't think it's a bad thing in either way, just because I think we've seen Garoppolo do it, and we've never, like, I think I've been, I think we've both been pretty consistent on Garoppolo throughout the year. He's not good. We don't think he's, like, great per se. He's also not bad. Like, you can, like, evidence has shown that, like, you can win games with him if it's right for him. And, clearly, as we've all seen in this, 2-minute drill or whatever, like, he is clutch. Like, that's something.
Well, I think he's very similar to Kirk Cousins in the sense that you kind of guaranteed yourself a floor with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? On the contingency that he doesn't get hurt, of course, but with him on your team, as long as you're not the Jacksonville Jaguars or the New York Jets, you guarantee yourself a certain level of winning and the ability to make the playoffs, right? That you just wouldn't get with maybe Tyrod Taylor or a Teddy Bridgewater or that type of guy, even though Jimmy probably isn't that much better than all those guys. He's proven that he can win.
Yeah, the dream
Just
here
win,
is for
baby.
the dream is here that they somehow make it to the Super Bowl,
Right.
and then obviously I think his stock would go up.
Right.
I think that's the obvious situation. Even if they were to, I don't know if it will go up as much if they beat Dallas, but if they beat Green Bay and they lose an NFC Championship game, I think that his stock would go up either way.
Yeah, it matters about the context of it, but
they got to get there first, obviously.
Yeah, they got to get there first, and we'll certainly see against Dallas. This is going to be an interesting week. This is Dallas hate week. It's going to be, man, what a season for the 49ers. Like, just wrapping this show up here, it's been like the most dramatic season ever.
What crazy, yeah.
And I don't think the craziness is going to stop this offseason. Like, I think it'll be less dramatic because they don't have a first-round pick to go and trade and gamble their entire future for. But it's certainly going to be quite
I think a lot of it,
dramatic break from Jimmy.
I think a lot of it will just like calm and kind of ease when Garoppolo is out.
Yeah, once he's out,
because there could be this whole like crazy situation. No, I'm being serious here.
I know you're being serious, and I've been getting texts from my brother, and I've been getting texts from other people about Jimmy. I don't want to hear it. Please,
I'm not saying it'll happen, and I don't think it should happen, but that is a scenario where he does come back. I don't think it's a smart one, but
please don't start this, Vinny.
Going back, all right.
I don't want you to.
I'll spare it. I know I got
ruin my day,
bro. I know I got the Italian flag behind me. I got the Garoppolo jersey. I'm a big Garoppolo fan or whatever. I've been pretty consistent on him throughout the year. I think I'm a little more like optimistic when it comes to evaluating Garoppolo than some other people. That's not a bad thing either, but like I just think it's just something that you gotta think about that you potentially do that could add to this 49ers madness and all the content that we've been able to cover from it. Dude, that would be insane if they did it. But going back to this,
you want to talk about content creation and drama? Keeping Jimmy around would be quite the way to keep the content craziness up. Because I'll say this. The 49ers are the best content machine in the NFL right now. And with Jimmy and the whole controversy, just turns it up to 15. So
yeah.
If you love the controversy,
and like with this game in particular, heading into this Dallas game, the one thing that I do kind of worry about a little bit before we head out here is, was that Rams game too emotionally draining for them heading into this game? I think that's something like
they could have that potential emotional letdown. Yeah, I think that's a big worry.
Yeah, and I obviously like ultimately it'll just come down to what the production is on the field and everything. But I think this is something that I went to I go to Gonzaga right now, and last year they were in the national championship, and although like they lost to a better team in Baylor, like that game before when they played that crazy UCLA game where Jalen Suggs hits that game-winning shot. I'm not saying that's why the reason that they lost that Baylor game. Baylor was just a better basketball team. But I think there was some like emotionally, and I get it's a little different just because you are like amped up and ready to play in this national championship game because it's a championship game. But I think there was something like emotionally draining to having to play 2 days later in that biggest game after what happened, that game before. And I think the 49ers with the emotions that were going through them during that game and the fight, that resiliency that they had, could it be potentially too much? We won't know until they play on Sunday, but I expect this team to be ready. I think this isn't the first time, Kyle Shanahan has coached in the playoffs, either as a head coach or a, offensive coordinator. But I think this is something that I think they'll be ready. And I think they understand that they do have a chip on their shoulder. And I think, they're kind of just, I don't know if I think they have expectations for themselves, but I think at the same time, it's just going to be like, just let it fly and just play the game and let everything figure itself out. So, I think this is going to be a great game, and I'm going to predict a 49ers win. I don't know what the line, I think it's a 3-point. I think
it's a 3 or 5 point.
Dallas is 3-point favorites, I think.
Something like that.
I can't give you a score, but I think the 49ers can do it. I think
the 49ers will cover the spread. I'm not sure.
I can't guarantee a win. And I think it would be.
And you know what? I'm not going to make a prediction either because honestly, we don't know about injuries. We'll see with Trent Williams. That's going to be a big one.
Yeah,
K1.
I'll hold off. I'll hold off on a prediction. I know I said they'll win. I'm gonna veto
Okay,
that.
one thing before we get out of here. Don't complain about this. Stop it, 49ers fans. Oh my,
dude.
For the love
I'm
of
sorry.
God. Every team gets bad calls. Stop it. Stop complaining about this. It's nonsense.
The refs aren't going to be the reason why the 49ers lose on Sunday. I promise you that. I'm sorry, Swan Song. We appreciate the support that you
we
give
love
us
you,
and everything.
man. But I hear this all the time.
And this isn't just
gets held.
This isn't just a Swan Song.
No. This is why I'm making this announcement, Vinny. It's because all the time I see 49ers fans, Bosa got held. Oh, look at this hold here. They didn't call this here.
TJ Watt gets held every play. Aaron Donald gets held every play.
Micah Parsons gets held all the time. Trayvon, like it evens out in the NFL. And if you can find
trust me, Mike Compton holds. I promise you. And even Trent Williams holds. Every player, there's a penalty every play.
Yeah, there is. It's like traveling in the NBA. Don't complain about it. Like it evens out. It's not like it's different, but the penalties even out in the NFL unless it's a Saints situation where it's egregious. And
and I've heard the arguments too, about quarterbacks get more calls than other quarterbacks in the league, and that should happen. Like every team plays those quarterbacks, and every team has those respective quarterbacks, and you may not necessarily plan for that, but you got to understand, hey, that is going to be a scenario that could happen. So you got to take care of the things that you can control. And I think
and if you know what, you should put it so in your control that shouldn't even be an issue, even if they do screw you over. That's the opinion I have about that.
And I think that's the thing about the Saints, bro, with how they're how that happened with the
just how everything happened.
You had so many chances before that to win that game. Don't be saying that you lost because of the refs, and you had so many other chances before that to not put it. Don't put the game in the hands of the refs. You can't do that. Just take advantage of the stuff that you can control, and everything else will figure itself out. But I've stopped, even as a fan and wanting to be a sports journalist in the future, I've stopped blaming refs for anything. Yes, there's going to be bad refs. That's every team has games where they have bad refs and things don't go their way. But there's a lot more other things that are more important to evaluate than how the refs were.
Yeah. I have zero patience for fans complaining about this stuff because, we went over it. I mean, it goes both ways. Sorry, one call doesn't go your way. If you watch the entire game, you'll feel like the refs missed a play or a call every single play. But that's where we're going to end here today, guys.
Yeah.
I appreciate the good conversation.
Great show. It was a fun show.
Make sure everyone follows Vinny. We'll be back next week. Hopefully the 49ers will still be playing. You know what? And maybe we'll try and do his Twitter Spaces too, because I know we've been really enjoying that. We didn't get to do a post game for this past week, but
we'll have a post game one for this week though.
Absolutely.
We'll definitely, maybe we'll try and do a preview one. We'll try and figure that out. But
we should definitely look into that. So everyone, make sure you follow Vinny and I on Twitter. We'll put everything there. We'll keep everything updated. Be on the lookout next Monday or Tuesday. We'll be back, and I should be back on with a meme tomorrow. So keep your eyes out for that.
Check out Amin's stuff too. Amin's doing really well, especially at age. I think he's 13, right?
Yeah, man, he's 13. He is
crazy,
a rock star, man. A rock star. So look out for that, everyone. I hope you enjoy your week. I hope this Dallas. I've been saying I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I don't care as much about this postseason because I'm more interested in the future. But man, do I want them to beat Dallas so bad, so bad. Ugh. So let's end there. Beat Dallas. So Vinny and I can at least come back next week. We'll be back anyways, but
so we won't have to have off-season coverage because I don't think we want to start off-season coverage yet.
No, and you know what? If anything, we'll do a 49ers therapy session where we let people maybe call in or something. That would be fun. We can look into doing that once the 49ers lose. But for now, appreciate everyone sticking around. Swan Song, I will see you in the comments, man.
Appreciate everyone commenting. Means a lot.
Yeah, and the last thing, subscribe, like, make sure you subscribe to Vinny's channel so you can get all of our content. We'll be trying to put out a lot. So that's going to be it for us, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this show. Share it if you did like it. And we'll see you next week.
Peace.